All right, guys, welcome to our Sunday morning recap of Saturday week 3 games. What a day of college football yesterday. We're going to get things rolling with a little non-SEC action with an 11 a.m. game. Clemson traveled to Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech got off to an early start in that one and ended up closing the game out, winning 24-21. I think this moves Georgia Tech into ACC contention here. Another team in the league, Miami, looks really good, but Haynes King was phenomenal. Threw for 200 yards, 20 of 28, added 100 yards on the ground. But what was really impressive to me was the defense at Georgia Tech. They had an interception, a fumble recovery. Georgia Tech really kind of set the pace early in that game, got off to the early lead, and found a way to win at the end. So, you know, is Clemson not as good as everybody thought at the beginning of the year? I think that's a pretty valid question now. Kevin, I know you and I were both a little low on Cade Klubnik coming into the year. I think he's still a good quarterback. We were on the same page that he's not a Heisman, not going to win the Heisman, and may not lead them to a playoff. So, any thoughts on that game?
Yeah, so first of all, it was a great game. I'm a huge Brent Key fan, and just to touch on Klubnik and then kind of get into the game. Yeah, I never thought Klubnik was a Heisman candidate or even a first or second round draft pick type quarterback. I think he'll make an NFL roster, but he's a backup quarterback in the NFL. He got a lot of publicity off of that Texas game last year, and again, if you watch that game, he got yards late in the game when Texas was playing their safeties deep. So, but going back to the game, really fun game to watch. Tech jumped out 10-0. Clemson come back, got the game tied. Tech, got a 2-point conversion, and Clemson scores and ties the game, and then Tech comes down and God drills a 55-yard field goal that would have been good from 60 plus. So the interesting thing to me in this game is Tech has been on a journey with Brent Key in over 3 years, and they've gotten better each year. The first year, when he took the team, they were like 1-11. They were a bad football team. First year he got them better. They took a step. Last year, winning record, beat some teams. This year, they're in contention in the ACC. Miami would probably be the team you would have to put one, but I think Georgia Tech's the team that you would put in second right now. And Clemson, there's certainly questions about whether they're a playoff type team. That being said, though, this is not a bad loss because Georgia Tech's a good team. I'll say that. And then the other interesting thing to me in this is the coaches. Dabo was the guy that 10 years ago got his team to play hard with all guts and would just lay it on the line. The 2025 version of Georgia Tech is what Dabo had in 2016. The key gets his guys to play hard, play on the line. They play above. Uh, they maximize their ceiling with effort, and so in a game that was won with the BYOG as Dabo calls it, with bring your own guts. Clemson is the team that brought the guts yesterday, or not Clemson. Georgia Tech is the team that brought the guts yesterday and won that game. So, but what a fun game to watch early.
Yeah, definitely. Good game to get us started. And then another non-conference game that we'll roll into is USF traveled over down to Miami. And I predicted this one. Miami ended up winning the game 49-12. Yeah, 371 passing yards, 23 of 28 for Carson Beck with 3 touchdowns. They really just dominated the game from start to finish. It was a 28-6 game at halftime. Um, Miami now, I had my doubts about them a little bit. You know, even after the Notre Dame game. But, Miami's a real contender now. Carson Beck's playing great ball. They're running the ball well. Just under 600 yards of total offense last night, and really just dominated the game. They averaged a little over 5 yards a carry. And I think Carson Beck is probably, I know he threw 2 picks yesterday, but he's probably moving up people's Heisman watch board after last night.
It definitely was a game that Miami's skill position guys took over. USF has a good defense, and they've showed it by giving up about 300 yards a game. And I honestly thought that they could keep it competitive. I did not. I did think Miami's skill position guys would lead them to the win, but I thought it'd be about a 10-point game, and it wasn't. Miami dominated the game. Fletcher, running back, threw the ball well, and Miami's a good team. Both sides of the ball just totally dominated this one. Beat a good USF team, and so definitely Miami's at the top of the ACC, and for a conference that it's not real deep. Miami got off to a fast start last year, and the ACC needs them to hold true and have a complete season because Miami is the hope right now to make any noise in the playoffs for the ACC. They have Florida up next. I think they'll win that game, and we'll talk more about that Tuesday. But that to me will be another interesting game. But Florida or Miami is definitely a team right now that looks good. Both sides of the ball. Sound thrashing is all you can say about that.
Yeah, definitely. And then we switched to our last preview game from last week, Duke at Tulane. Tulane was up 24-9 at half. Ended up winning the game 34-27. Really, this was carried on the back of Jake Reslaf. He had 111 yards on the ground, 4 touchdown carries. And Darian Mintza, threw for 313 and 3 touchdowns. But Reslab was definitely the key for Tulane winning that game with 4 touchdowns on the ground, over 100 yards. So, a little bit of a high scoring game in that one with a 34-27 game. Both teams were right around 450 yards total offense. So yeah, Tulane got the win at home. Get to beat Duke, their former quarterback in Mintza over there. So any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think this is a game where, you know, Coach Summerall for Tulane really had them ready. They jump out on them early, and then, Duke got competitive as they came back. And Summerall's a good coach. He's one that we've talked about that probably end up at a Power Four school conference next year. And I think this is the type of game that exhibits, why teams will want him. Duke is probably the more talented team from top to bottom. Tulane was ready to play though, and you're right. Reslav had a good game. Again, to get him playing well, considering he didn't join the team until August in that fall period, again speaks a lot to the coaching. So I think you chalk this one up there. Great win for Tulane as they get into conference play.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to start with the kind of non-competitive to a degree SEC games. So we'll jump into Kentucky, Eastern Michigan. Kentucky wins by 25. So I still have a lot of questions about their defense. They gave up 461 yards to Eastern Michigan. But at the end of the day, it's a 25-point win. So don't want to spend long on this one. But anything that stuck out to you in that one?
No, the Kentucky defense giving up 20 plus points to Eastern Michigan, that would be what sticks out to me. Eastern Michigan lost to Long Island. They're not a good team. They're one of the worst teams in college football. So, Kentucky, this may be the last game they win. Just that was it. Kentucky put up good offensive numbers, but again, this is a bad football team. They should. I think the thing that's interesting is the fact that they couldn't stop Eastern Michigan at times. And so I think it's a long season for Kentucky from here out.
Yeah, I agree. And then we'll go to Mississippi State playing a home game against Alcorn State. 63-0, held Alcorn State to 155 yards of total offense. And on the flip side, they had 514 yards of total offense. Yeah, they ran the ball really efficiently and 82 yards on the ground, right at 8 yards a carry. Fluff Bothwell had 2 touchdowns. So really good game for Mississippi State. And a good game to play after beating Arizona State. Have kind of a little bit of a tune-up game. That way, if you're still high from the game before, you should still win. But clearly, they were focused, ready to go in this.
Yeah, I think this is Mississippi State did exactly what you would expect them to do in this game. They moved the ball, were efficient offensively, didn't turn it over, ran the ball well, scored a lot. Defense played a little better, I guess, maybe when you consider they did give up a lot of yards to Arizona State. So maybe they can kind of look for that on that positive. Mississippi State's certainly better than we thought they were going to be coming into the season. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch how their season plays out. We had them as a 3-4 type win season, and now they're certainly going to compete to go to a bowl game. And they've got games like Arkansas and Ole Miss on their schedule that I think that maybe that they can get now and win. And so it's going to be really Mississippi State's an interesting team to watch the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that Egg Bowl game is always one, regardless of where teams are ranked or unranked. Like, that's a down to the wire game every year. So that could potentially be a game, depending on how things shape up, that, Mississippi State could be 5-6 going into that one, needing that win. So that'll be
Absolutely.
really interesting. One more game, Texas and UTEP. Texas won 27-10, but it was not a pretty game for Texas. The passing game never really got going. Arch was 11-25 for 114 yards. He did get 2 rushing scores as well, but man, Texas just never really got the offense rolling. Finished with 340 yards of total offense. A lot of penalties for them, 7 penalties, 78 yards, 5 of 16 on third down against UTEP. That's about 30% or 28%. So they they looked a little rough this week.
Yeah, I think if you're a Texas fan, it's time for you to be concerned on the offensive side of the ball. And that's where Sark has, always done well calling plays, and he's viewed as a great play caller. Arches, look, he's young. So just to be fair, he deserves a season where he's going to grow. So I'll say that. But he's definitely having that. He's having a season that he's probably learning a lot of lessons, and he's probably growing. And if you're a Texas fan, you hope that gets a little better each game, because I think going into the season, you saw a lot of games that you were going to win that now you have to probably have question marks, i.e. Oklahoma, which I thought would be a Texas win early in the season. Can you get enough going offensively to win that game? And there's a few other games on their schedule. Obviously they go to Georgia. I think that's the concerning thing for Texas now. Another interesting thing in this game was Simon, who was the freshman running back, actually led their team in rushing yesterday. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And when you have Baxter and the other guys that they have at running back, Simon actually led the team in rushing. So probably an anomaly because he played more because they were ahead. Texas really good defensively, kind of like another team we're going to talk about later, but offense is struggling and they're consistently moving the ball. Their consistency moving the ball is definitely an opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Then we've got Missouri hosted the UL Raging Cajuns. I think we all hit the hammer on the head in this one. 52-10 game for Mizzou. The biggest bright spot for Mizzou was definitely Ahmad Hardy, 22 carries, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns. Mizzou ran the ball for 427 yards in this game, and then passed for 179. So they played a really good game, held UL to 4 total first downs, 120 yards, only 4 yards passing the ball. So crazy stat line there. Yeah, Mizzou did what we all expected. It just took care of business, and they're on to next week.
The Zoo, when they're good under Drinkowitz, runs the ball well. 2 years ago, Schrader, he ran the ball well, and they have developed their offense and they're getting into that rhythm. We talked about it before the season. Missouri has really good skill position guys. They have depth of running back. They have good wide receivers. Rabula seems to be developing into the offense, and again, they're giving him things that they need to do. They're not making him go out and throw for 300 to win games. And then their defense is always a little bit underrated, in my opinion. Again, when you look at who they have defensively, they have a lot of good, talented players. So this Missouri team, if you were looking and rating SEC teams, you would definitely have Missouri in the top 5 or 6 right now. And the question is, can they continue to make noise and maybe end up in those top 4 teams, compete for a playoff spot? Their schedule certainly sets up for it. They host South Carolina. I don't know. Sellers is gonna. He had a concussion last night. So, will he play in that game? I think regardless whether he plays or not, Missouri wins that game. They're going to be the better team. And then, in a few weeks, as we get into October, Missouri hosts Alabama, and that's the game that I think when you look at how Missouri's developing right now in that Alabama team and Missouri's rushing attack, and I still think that that's how you attack Alabama is with a good running game. I think that's going to be a very interesting game as we get into October. But Missouri, though, probably, I'm not going to say they were a surprise team because we thought they would, go 9-3 and compete for 10-2 maybe. But Missouri is definitely a team that looks very good and has answered the bell. Big win over Kansas in a rivalry game, developing the running game that again has been success for Grinkowitz and their team.
Yeah, completely agree. We move over to Auburn hosting South Alabama. Auburn wins this game 31-15. I'd kind of compare it to the Texas game a little bit, or LSU versus Louisiana Tech last week. Little sloppy to be honest, but they get a win. South Alabama was 44% on third downs and 75% on fourth down in that game. So not a pretty win by any means, but a win. And Jackson Arnold added a touchdown in the air, 2 on the ground, and Cobb ran for 120 and a touchdown. So just got out of there with a win this week and on to the next one pretty much.
Yeah, and the next one's Oklahoma. So next week you have Jackson Arnold and Latier game in Norman. That should probably bring a lot of emotion. And you've got 2 teams that had rough years last year that both teams hope to have really good years this year. And I think that's going to be a really interesting game. I agree. Auburn was sloppy yesterday. I really thought they would play a little better, but I understand, with Oklahoma next, they probably looked ahead a little bit. So we'll see next week. You know, Whoever wins that game it's a big game, I think. And again, especially when you look at schedules, Oklahoma scheduling, especially Oklahoma needs that win at home because they still got to go to Tennessee, which Tennessee's playing really well too. They still have LSU to play. They go to Alabama. So that's a game that I think, in my opinion, Oklahoma has circled as a must win. For Auburn, though, if Auburn wants to get, in contention for the playoffs, they win that game next week because their schedule is not as tough. Then it sets them up to where they can win 10 games if they win in. So be a fun game to watch next week.
Yeah, definitely. And then talking about Oklahoma, they get a 42 win over Temple at Temple. 500 yards of offense held Temple to 105 yards of offense. Mateer threw for 280, a touchdown and a pick, ran for a touchdown. Torrey Blaylock ran for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Really, Oklahoma just took care of business with a 39-point win. But again, this week, that really sets up a huge game for Oklahoma and Auburn next week.
Yeah. Interesting thing in this game, our Mason Thomas game for targeting in the second half. So he has to miss the first half of that Auburn game next week. Key player for their defense coming off the edge to rush the passers. I think that is an interesting topic for next week. Oklahoma had a good week though. Mateer had another good game. Freshman running back had a good game. They played well. Defense is good. Good win for them. Thomas out next week in the first half. Going to make that a little interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Now we move on to some of the bigger games in the SEC. Alabama hosted Wisconsin and really aired the ball out. Ty Simpson was 24-29, 382 yards, 4 touchdowns. Ryan Williams had 165 yards, two scores. Bernard had a touchdown catch and a touchdown run. Alabama looked good. One thing that I'm going to kind of nitpick for a second was them rushing the ball. They ran the ball 22 times for 72 yards in this game. It didn't run effectively. When the pass game's working the way it was, I guess you don't have to lean on that too much. It's a dominant win for Alabama. Covered the spread that was 20.5 in this one. So big win for them coming off, big win last week against ULM. So great showing from the Alabama offense and the defense really in this one.
Yeah, this is the game that Alabama fans wanted to see from a Ty Simpson standpoint. The last 2 weeks, Ty Simpson's been really good. Again, Bernard at wide receivers probably elevated his game. He's right there with Ryan Williams if you look at season statistics. But Simpson, you know, the last 2 games, he's only had like 4 or 5 incompletions if you add both games together. So he's been really good. It's what Alabama wanted to see. It's what they expected to see coming into the season. It's what they hoped for with Grubb as the offensive coordinator. So it's a good win for them. Give them credit for that. Wisconsin's a team though that's taking a step back, so we'll see. That Bama has a bye week, and then in 2 weeks they go to Georgia. So really be interesting game there with Simpson going on the road. But they took care of the business at home and they looked good. So good win for Bama. They're back in. They can get back in some contention talk after this win.
Yeah, definitely. And then the next game is Tennessee, Georgia. Georgia ends up winning this one in overtime, 44-41. A big thing for Kirby Smart was saying he wanted to see the Gunner Stockton he saw in practice. Stockton was pretty efficient, 23 of 31, 300 yards, two touchdowns, then added one on the ground. He did have a fumble in that game, but I think this is the Gunner Stockton Georgia fans have been waiting to see a little bit. Really good showing from him. And on the other side, Joey Aguilar, 24 36, 371, four touchdowns. He did throw two picks, but he also added another score on the ground for a 5 touchdown day. This was a game that I picked Georgia and but I thought it would be done a whole lot differently, to be honest. Tennessee fought really hard in this one, and you know, to go to overtime in this one is huge. They had a chance to win this game, and missed a 43-yard field goal with 3 seconds left. Or we're talking a 41-38 game with a win for Tennessee. So really good game. Two really good SEC teams squaring off. A lot of offense, not as much defense as I thought we would have seen in this one.
Yeah, this was probably the best game of the day. I mean, God, we had some good games. You had Georgia State, Clemson. You had this game. We're going to talk about Notre Dame A&M, which was a really good game. But this was a really well played game. I'm like you. I had Georgia, but it definitely didn't play out like I thought. I thought Georgia's cornerbacks could tighten up on Tennessee's wide receivers. They're young wide receivers. Brazil's not young, but the rest of them are. And that was completely opposite. Tennessee's passing game was good. Aguilar threw for 370 plus, had 4 touchdowns. He's certainly been better than we anticipated him to be. And it forced Georgia to really step up offensively. First quarter of the game's 21-7. And Tennessee's playing well. And you could tell Kirby on the sidelines was really working his team, his staff, and they got the offense going and made the game competitive. The drive to start the second half where they ran the ball for 68 yards just right down the field and to establish the line of scrimmage there. That was key for Georgia. Just from a mentality standpoint, I really think that was the key drive of the game and how they basically established with Tennessee that we're going to be here physically to play you. And then, scored late, get a 2-point conversion. They certainly needed some breaks at the missed field goal. But then they took and capitalized on those breaks. So great win for Georgia. in a really good game that Tennessee could probably take this game and say, okay, it's a tough loss, but there's no reason we can't go from here and win pretty much the rest of their games. They go on the road to Alabama that third week in October. That'll be a tough game. Outside of that, I think Tennessee's favored in every game the rest of the season at home. So I think that their fans have a lot to be excited.
Yeah, definitely. One stat line that sticks out to me in a Georgia Tennessee game, there were 998 yards of total offense in this game.
Yeah, we didn't
Uh,
expect that.
no, nowhere near that. So now we'll flip over to the Arkansas Ole Miss game. Yeah, this was a game that was 31-28 at half. A lot of points scored in the first half. Ole Miss ends up winning 41-35. Trinidad Chambliss got the start for the Rebels in this one. Was pretty efficient passing, 21 of 29 for 353 and a touchdown, and then added two touchdowns on the ground with 62 yards. Kalen Green was also pretty efficient with 300 yards through the air, a touchdown, 115 yards rushing, and a touchdown there. Um, pretty good back and forth game. Arkansas did lose a fumble in this game, which, ultimately could have been a key play in this one. So, kind of what I expected a little bit. I did pick Arkansas to win this, but I thought it would be, like a 38-35, 42-38 style game. So 41-35 is kind of on par there. Another game that was a lot of offense. You had 1,001 yards in this one. So just a fun game to watch yesterday, and the Rebels came out with a win in this one. What did you think of this one?
Yeah, we both picked Arkansas. Austin Simmons, we kind of anticipated that he might be out in this game, and Arkansas has been good offensively. But even though we missed the game, I think we had the flow of the game right. We both expected this to be a high scoring game, and we thought Arkansas maybe could just outscore them. And if it wasn't for, a Jalen Brown fumble late in the fourth quarter inside Ole Miss's 30-yard line, Arkansas might have pulled this game out. It was one of those games where the offense is dominated, and one turnover at the end of the game basically decided it. So, fun game to watch. Ole Miss needed it, and they got out with a victory. Arkansas fans, they needed it too because they got some tough games coming up.
Yeah, definitely. And then we move over to the Vanderbilt South Carolina game. Vandy wins this game 30. We both picked Vandy, I think, to win this one. But I don't think anybody expected it to happen in the fashion that it did. Lenore Stellars goes out really early in this game. And, Vanderbilt just pretty much controlled this game. It was 14 at half. They end up winning 31-7. Vandy's going to be a good team this year. Hopefully for South Carolina's sake, Lenore Sellers is able to come back soon. I know he's got a concussion right now, so he'll go through the protocol this week. Vandy just went on the road and took care of business, and now they're 3-0 and 1-0 in the SEC. The Lenore Sellers injury definitely plays a big part in the outcome of this game. So, what did you think of this one?
Yeah. So again, Clark Lee. Let me start with Vandy. Clark Lee. We talked about this game when we did the preview, and in the game, he just does such a good job coaching this team. They don't make mistakes. They tackle well. They don't have a lot of penalties. They set themselves up to be successful because they're just so well coached and so good fundamentally. So I think that's the first thing, and you can take that on the road and you can have success. He's a Vanderbilt grad, and he's certainly done a great job getting Vanderbilt to play good football. And then you go from there to kind of the person that stokes the fire offensively. Pavia, he's been really good the first three games of the season, and he was good again last night. Sellers' injury certainly played a role in South Carolina and their ineptness on offense. With the season preview, we talked about how key he is to their team. There's two quarterbacks that have to play well for their teams to win, and that's John Mateer at Oklahoma, and that's Pavia, or not Pavia, that is, well, Pavia too. It's a three, but Pavia, Sellers, Mateer, those guys have to play well for their teams to win. So when Sellers went out in that game last night, it really made the game challenging for South Carolina to win. But credit to Clark Lee, his coaching, credit to Pavia. Uh, really nice win on the road. And Vanderbilt's got 3 wins, 3-0. So going to another bowl game looks very likely in their season.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got 2 games left, so we'll start with Texas A&M traveling to South Bend to take on Notre Dame. Man, this was a good offensive performance from both teams, really. Notre Dame had 125 yards total. Texas A&M finished with about 480. Marcel Reed threw for 360 and 2 touchdowns, ran for 37 yards. Le'Veon Moss had 3 touchdown scores. And then Jeremiah Love kind of got rolling a little bit with 94 yards and a score. This game went down to the wire with Texas A&M scoring really late to win this one with they scored a touchdown with 2 minutes left, I think. No, 13 seconds left. Really, really big game, and what a catch on that touchdown. I was lucky enough to get to a condo on LSU's campus to see that touchdown catch. So we got to see it live. I expected both offenses to kind of show up in this one. I did pick Notre Dame to squeak out a win, but man, Texas A&M's 3-0, big win on it here, and Notre Dame's 0-2. So not the year Notre Dame wants, coming off a great season last year. I think Marcel Reed showed that he's a lot more than just a running quarterback in this one. Throwing for 360 at 2 scores. Mario Carver was incredible with 7 catches for over 200 yards and a touchdown. Just really good offensive showing from A&M. And, overall, not a terrible defensive performance either by any means. But A&M gets the job done, and they're sitting at 3-0 right now.
Yeah, I think the story for A&M is their offense and Reed, the leadership that he's providing him at quarterback. Craver and Concepcion have certainly been really good in the wide receiver room for them. So offense has been the key so far early in the season for A&M. They've scored 30 plus in every game. This was a really good game. Probably the second best game of the day, in my opinion. A&M took control early. Notre Dame came back, took the lead, and took it into the fourth quarter. A&M tied the game, and then Notre Dame scores with about 3 minutes to go, and then A&M finished it with the last drives. Notre Dame missed an extra point when they scored to go ahead, 40-34. That extra point came back to Hana. I think the interesting thing in this is at Texas A&M, they show that I think their defense has a good ways to go. That being said, their offense is very good. One of the best offensive lines in the nation in all conferences. Good running backs. Reed's playing well. And now you have 2 wide receivers that are definitely a threat. So that offense is legit. So if you play Texas A&M, you're going to have to put 30 points on the board to beat this team. So for their future opponents, better bring your offense, because A&M can score, and they have a very balanced offense with a good offensive line. And that's a recipe for success for any team.
Yeah, definitely. And now we roll into the last game. LSU hosted Florida, and this game is one where both offenses need some help right now. LSU wins this game 20-10. So LSU gets the win. 3-0, but man, the offense could never get going. Nussmeier only threw for 220 yards, 15 of 27, a very untimely pick on a holding call that if you just sky it into the stands, you're fine there. Florida, I thought moved the ball pretty well offensively overall too. we made big plays when we needed to with the 5 interceptions. But Florida had 23 first downs to LSU's 10 last night. And LSU opened the first quarter with three and outs for a total of 16 yards to start the game. Yeah, the offense has definitely got to be better. Whit Weeks gets called for a targeting call very early in the game. Ends up sitting out the entire game. So defense really responded well, and then West Weeks goes down late in the game with an injury. Man, what a game for Deshaun Spears! 2 interceptions, one he took back to the house. As many questions as you have about the offense at LSU, the defense stepped up, and the offense has to get more efficient. Yeah, we had 5 3 and outs, 4 and out, and then really to end the first half too. You could even include, well, we made a field goal to end the half, but that was a 3 play, 12-yard drive. So, offense was a little better in the second quarter. That touchdown drive, 10 plays, 76 yards. Yeah, the offense has got to play better at LSU, whether it's play calling issue. I think we've got to target the middle of the field in the passing game. There's one play that I have in my notes from last night's game. Our punt coverage did a great job. We tackled them inside the 6 yard line. I believe this was in the first or second quarter. And then they get a third down holding call. Then the touchdown's called back. Man, I was so frustrated that that guy was 25 yards wide open, regardless of a holding call or not. Luckily, it got called back. Yeah, we never really got things going offensively. Penalties kind of stalled us out a little bit too. We got lucky with a right before half there, I think. Double unsportsmanlike conduct, one on us, one on them. That easily could have just been called on us, put us out of field goal range there. So we've, 7 penalties for 68 yards. The offsetting one isn't included in that number. So, not a clean game from a penalty perspective. At one point, we call a timeout in the game, and then the ensuing play, we get hit with a false start penalty. Can't have those. But at the end of the day, LSU gets a win. We pick DJ Lagway off 5 times, most interceptions thrown in a game by a Florida quarterback since 1992. So defense stepped up when they needed to, but man, Florida kind of controlled the possession game with almost 38 minutes of offense. Outgained us by 40 yards, but the big number is the 23 first downs for them that sticks out to me.
Yeah, so to me, I want to look at this game for two facets. One, I want to talk about the defense first because that's what got LSU the win. Then two, I want to talk about the offense. Defensively, LSU is really good. The Bayou Bandits, as they are phrasing their defense, they definitely get after you. They get after another team's offense. They bring pressure. They bring it from multiple places. Blake Baker does a great job of dialing up different blitzes. They really pressured in the center of the pocket. Lagway could never get comfortable in the pocket last night. He was constantly having to look around, you know, who's collapsing the pocket here, where's the pressure coming from, and then you take it from there. The second level of linebackers were great. Whitweek's maybe your best defensive player. He goes out first series, and then Westwick's finished the game with 12 tackles. Keys finished the game with 14 tackles. So your linebackers came to play, and Perkins had a couple of instances where he brought pressure on Lagway too. So that front seven was very disruptive. And then that also, from a complementary standpoint, LSU may have the best secondary in college football. I know going into the season, people talked about Alabama and Georgia secondary, but there's no secondary playing better than LSU's right now. And let's start it with a guy that didn't get an interception last night and wasn't talked about during the game a lot. And that's simply because he takes whoever he's playing, he plays man, And whoever he's playing, he just takes him out of the game. And that's Monster Delane. Nick Saban on game day did a talk about defensive back play and how you're supposed to play it. And he used Delane as his example. And I'm telling you, feet wise, technique wise, Delane just takes his guy out. They threw at him 3 or 4 times last night. It was not even close to completions because of his coverage ability and then the way that he uses his feet and body to basically in the sideline to take the receiver out of the play. So starts there, and then safety play for LSU is so much improved. Halsey and Cooley, they don't miss tackles. And they're also very physical when they come up and run support in that part of the game or, tackling a receiver over the middle. And then Woodland last night had a couple pass breaks up. So he was good. Spears, like you referenced, when he came in the dime and the nickel packages, he got 2 interceptions where, again, the pressure was there and Lagway rushed his throws and he was sitting right there on it. Similar throw to end the first half, a huge play for LSU to get an interception with Halsey, broke on a pass over the middle and picked it off, returned it for about 15 yards to set up that field goal. So, again, secondary was just dominant. And DJ Pickett got a late interception on a ball that was thrown across the field with a lot of air in it. The one thing that stood out on all these interceptions was the defensive backs playing the ball. Pickett's was the last one, but it was an example that the ball was in the air and he treated that ball like he was the wide receiver. The same thing on Halsey's interception. Cooley's interception was similar. Those DBs just go after the balls. I think LSU's defense is elite. I think they have a national championship type defense, and I think they can go into every game confident that they can hold a team low 20s and below. They're just very good defensively. Another good game against the run when you look at average per carry. I think Florida averaged 2.9 a carry. And Florida has a solid offensive line, and Jaden Ball's one of the better running backs that they'll play against this year. So I just can't say enough accolades about the defense and how they played, the aggressive way that they played. You're right. Florida had 76 plays, I think, to LSU's 52, 54, something like that, time of possession. I credit that more to LSU's lack of offense than I credit it to Florida. All the 3 and outs that LSU had, 5 in the game, and then they're 4 and out. So 6 times we basically possessed the ball for a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then turn it back to them. So, but again, great job by the defense. Let me say a little bit about special teams and hit on the offense. Chadwick was great last night. I think he had 4 punts inside the 20. He hit another couple punts for 50 yards. He's a transfer that hasn't been talked about much, but Chadwick's been key to the team. Really played a role in field position. You referenced the time that we tackled the guy for Florida on the return about the 6-yard line. And that was a point where we went 3 and out, and Florida was up 3-0, and we needed that to flip the field and to get field position for us to score, which is what we did after that series. So want to give credit to Chadwick and then also to Ramos. Ramos hit the 2 field goals that he had. One right before half. When we get a motion penalty, it was set up to be about a 44-yard field goal spotted on the 34 or 32. And we get a motion penalty, so it moved it back to about a 47-yard field goal, and he stuck it. So, it was good for him to hit that, and then the one that, he had to tie the game early when we were struggling. So special teams was solid. Kicking game was good. I'll say that. And then kicking game was really good. Then so let's go to the offense. So first quarter, there's just so much to say. First quarter, just not very good at all. No rhythm offensively. Florida came out in 2 safety high. Sometimes they would even drop their nickel 12 yards back. So Florida played a little bit of a shell type defense, similar to what Louisiana Tech played. Clemson played us a lot of 2 high too. Teams right now are going to make LSU take 10-play drives and move the ball down the field. Teams do not feel like LSU can score on them by going 7, 8, 10 plays and taking 5, 6 minutes. And LSU's proving them to be right. So they came out early. First play of the game, LSU picked 6 yards up, in the running game. It's 2nd and 4, two straight passes again. Maybe you'd like to see a run on 2nd down and maybe set up 3rd short. 2 straight passes after that. We're off the field. Second quarter. So first quarter, just not very good. But again, going back to the whole 2 high safety and that, the middle of the field, you could see what's going to be open for LSU to throw the ball, whether it be a wide receiver over the middle, a tight end over the middle. We did hit 3 or 4 slant passes, again, with their safeties, giving us that cushion. So second quarter, I thought was much better called. We hit some passes over the middle of Anderson. We hit a couple slants to Thomas and Anderson to move the ball. The touchdown pass, I thought was a great play call. It was about the 20, 21, 22-yard line. We had 3 receivers on the right side of the field. We flooded the zone there to force the safeties to respect that and to make those plays. One of the receivers, the slot receiver, had a slight opening that forced that safety to come down. That would have been about the 3 to 5 yard line. But what that set up, it was on the back side of that where we had the single receiver on the left hand side, Davion Thomas, forced Florida to guard him with man coverage, and he was able to simply just run a curl route right on the goal line and thus hit him. And like I said, that was a really well called play. And we seemed to get in a rhythm, and we attacked their defense where their defense was playing us to where we could move the ball in the second quarter. So really not good in the first quarter. Second quarter, much better. Then we get into the second half and we got the pick 6 early, and it seemed like after that we quit wanting to attack their defense. It was like we got very conservative, and we really just didn't move the ball. There was a series in the second half. I hated the 2 plays. Again, we pick up 7-8 yards on first down. It's 2nd and 2. They have 5 guys in the box. We don't audible into a running play. I mean, if you got 5 guys in the box and you got 6 guys in the secondary, you got to run the ball. Take your first down. Again, that's why we couldn't maintain possession and time of possession and get first downs. 10 first downs in the game. A 2nd and 2, and we don't get first down. We don't run the ball. We went ahead and threw into the 6 defensive backs, threw an incompletion. Then we come back. It's 3rd and 2. 7 players in the box. The tight end play that we've ran under Kelly, where it's parallel to the line of scrimmage. We hit Bauer sharp, but he's running away. It's not from himself. It's on the left side, so he catches it and he's running away, and it's a hard pass for him to catch and turn upfield, and he doesn't. So Florida has strung it out, and he's trying to beat a defensive back to the edge. Even though Sharp's a good athlete, probably not going to outrun a defensive back to the edge. So Florida strung it out, tackling 1 yard short of the first down. And again, we had 2nd 2 with a chance to get a first down there. That to me was the second half offense, just the ineptness of able to move the ball, get any rhythm offensively, and threaten to get another score to bust the game open. We could have went up 27-10. We had control of the game, but if we went up 27-10, we could have been much better off. We did hit Sharp later in the game with a pass over the middle. That play was open all night. There was a pass play in the first quarter where Sharp was 15, 20 yards down the field, wide open. We took Brown on the sideline route, and it was a 12-yard pass play for a first down, so it was a good play. But we just didn't attack them in the second half at all, what they were giving us. And so that to me, it's an enigma right now, I think, with LSU and their offense. I think they have to clean some things up. You have to have, if teams are going to play in that shell and make us beat them down the field with 8, 10, 15-yard pass plays, we've got to take that. Again, Anderson caught a couple of those in the first half, and Thomas, and added another 10 yards after the catch with a run. And so we have to take that. There's going to be a lot of people say we've got to take shots, but if teams are going to play us with their safeties 15, 20 yards off the ball and a nickel back, the same thing, we've got to take what's in front of us. We got to show that we can move the ball, and we got to get more consistent in the running game. We did have a couple of plays where we, had 5-6 yards of carry, and Durham busted that one late for 50. But we also had a lot of plays where we didn't execute on the offensive line. So defense was great. Offense has got to do a better job of being consistent with play calling and their execution. Can't have motion penalties that put you behind the chains or holding penalties. We had some of those last night. So to me, it's the offense has got to have more execution, and we got to have first downs. First downs give you field positions. Again, when you get 2nd 2, 2nd 4, those have got to be first downs, just to keep your defense off the field and to set up field position for the game. So 2 weeks we go to Ole Miss. Ole Miss has proven that they can move the ball, and we know Lane Kiffin is a good offensive coach. So I feel confident in our defense going to Oxford and holding Ole Miss and containing their offense. I want to say holding them. Ole Miss will get the 20s, very likely. But I think defensively we can contain them. But offensively, we've got to be able to score high 20s, 30 points in that game to win. So lot to clean up. Again, I think LSU is a team that still has the playoffs in front of them, and they have talent on offense. So I'm not giving up on this offense. They have plenty of talent in that wide receiver room. Durham's a good running back. Nuss has the ability to play at quarterback. And again, I think the offensive line can come together. They're still in only their third game. They showed signs. Florida's a very good defensive line, and Clemson is too. And both of those defensive lines, we showed times we certainly didn't do it consistently. So I think the offense can come together. But I'll also say this: next week is week 4. We got to show it. We got to show the offense can play next week against Southeastern, and we have to show that in 2 weeks. We can't have any more games where the offense just looks suspect. Execution has to be better. Sloan has to do a better job at practice driving that execution for us to succeed. So I know I said a lot there. Daniel, I'll let you, anything else you want to add about the offense?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So we had 12 drives on offense last night. 11 of those 12 drives were 6 plays or less. If it's not for Chadwick punting the ball 7 times for 353 yards, pinning them inside the 24 times, it could be a different game. We had more punt yards than total offense last night by 31 yards. So we definitely have to get better there. If I'm giving out game balls on offense and defense, I know Chadwick's a special teams guy, but he gets the offensive game ball this week. And then Deshaun Spears gets it on defense for me with his pick six. Yeah, we have to execute better. There's not a deficiency of talent on this offense by any means. You've got Caden Durham, Harlem Berry, Juwan Johnson at running back. It's a pretty solid 3 deep at running back. You've got Garrett Nussmeier, and then your wide receiver room's deep. I'm critical of them in this game, but I'm optimistic because of the amount of talent that's on that offense that at some point it's going to get going. And I think they've really got to use this Southeastern game to get things going. I realistically, we should see 5 or 6 touchdowns, probably 5 or 6 passing touchdowns, 2 or 3 on the ground. Like you've got to put up 60 points on Southeastern next week. Because the following week you go to Ole Miss. You're going to have to score 24 to 31 points to win that game, most likely. Defense has been phenomenal. 3 touchdowns in 3 weeks. So not worried there at all. But, I wouldn't be surprised if, Ole Miss can score 2 touchdowns and get 2 field goals in this game in 2 weeks, which is still a dominant defensive performance. But yeah, at some point the offense has to have a little life for LSU to get to the playoff and for them to reach their full potential this season. But at the end of the day, we beat a pretty good Florida team by 10. Covered the spread, and we were 1-0 this week. So a lot of things to be critical of, but at the end of the day, we won another game, and we're going to be 4-0 most likely going into that Ole Miss game, which you could see. I don't know what games are that week, but that could be College Game Day from the Grove there, and that's going to add a little fuel to the fire for Ole Miss. Game days there. Lane Kiffin's going to scheme up a good offense, and Blake Baker's going to call a good game. We have got to get the ball rolling on offense. We don't have to score 50, 60 points against everybody, but more than a touchdown would be nice.
Agree. So you mentioned game balls. I love the Chadwick pick. He was key last night. Spears definitely, you got to consider him with the 2 interception, pick six. I would probably go simply because of the timing of this. So when Whit Weeks went out with the targeting, call. West Weeks really stepped up defensively and showed a lot of leadership. So I would just give it to West for that standpoint. He played with a lot of passion after that. Again, through 3 quarters, had 12 tackles. Probably would have led the team in tackles, if he wouldn't have had the injury. And again, Keys was really good too. Again, the Bayou Bandit defense, it is what it is. We're going to hear more about that the rest of the year. Blake Baker, I'll just say right now, he's an early Broyles Award nominee for outstanding assistant coach. I think you're going to put him right there right now. So you're right. We need to score 50, 60 points next week. The offense needs the confidence. They're not a confident group right now. Nuss threw for 4,000 last year, and he's yet to hit 300 yards in 3 games. Now, 2 of those games are against good defenses. I get that, but they need next week badly. They can't. This game can't get here quick enough. We need a good week of practice and execution because we need to be able to go into that Ole Miss game confident. Really good thought around that game day thing. Lane's going to want to make the playoffs. Both teams are undefeated coming into that game. It'll set up as that type of matchup. I don't think Ole Miss is that type of team this year. That being said, though, for LSU to go in there and win, they got to bring their offense.
Yeah, definitely agree. So that wraps us up for our week 3 recap. We'll be live Tuesday at 6:30 Central Time with our week 4 previews. So make sure if you're listening to this, you follow, like, and subscribe. Anything else to add, Kevin, before we end it?
Oh, just week 3's over, and it was a great day of football. Again, we had some really great games. If you're a college football fan, this is why you watch. I mean, you had A&M, Notre Dame, Georgia, Tennessee, Arkansas, Ole Miss, LSU was a competitive game. Just a great day of football to watch. So, got great games next week. Auburn, Oklahoma. We'll go over those games Tuesday. 2 weeks we got Georgia and Alabama. So if you're a fan, make sure you just take in the moment and enjoy each week. It's what we live for. So fun times.
Definitely. Well, that's all for us this week. We'll see you guys on Tuesday.